Which is why that dinner we might have this Thursday here at the church is probably closer to the genuine Thanksgiving dinner than all your lovely feasts at home. I want to talk about potluck, how that's sometimes better than planned luck. The whole idea of planned luck makes no sense. But we tell ourselves that, you have to be prepared for life. You have to be forward-looking and all that kind of stuff. And I'm here to plead for the random, the unplanned, the unmerited, the unknown. In some respects, the whole Thanksgiving thing is an accident. You know who proclaimed the first modern Thanksgiving Day? It was Abraham Lincoln, 1863. Now imagine you're living in the United States in 1863. Remember what's going on in 1863. They called it a civil war. In fact, so many people died in that war. Eventually, it was not until Vietnam that we had lost as many men in all the other wars to equal what we lost in that one war. Literally 20% of our male population perished in that war, to say nothing of materiel and food and other things. So Lincoln is saying, rejoice, it's Thanksgiving. What was he trying to do? Well, I looked up his proclamation, and he talks about it in this way. In the midst of a civil war of unequaled magnitude and severity, needful diversions of wealth and the strength of the fields have not arrested the plow, the shuttle, or the ship. No human counsel hath devised, nor any mortal hand worked out these great things. It has seemed to me proper and fit that they should be solemnly, reverently, and gratefully acknowledged as with one heart. I do therefore invite my fellow citizens in every part of the United States, and he includes the Confederacy here, to join and set apart and observe the last Thursday of November next as a day of thanksgiving and praise. And I recommend to them that while offering up the ascriptions justly due to him for such singular deliverances and blessings, they also do, and here's what I love, with humble penitence for our national perverseness and disobedience, commend to his tender care all those who have become widows, orphans, mourners, or sufferers in the lamentable civil strife in which we are unavoidably engaged. Not the kind of thing we expect for a Thanksgiving proclamation. Not only a proclamation of gratitude, but of penitence, of regret, as well as gladness. We've overlooked that part, haven't we? In the Passover meal, which looks a lot like a Thanksgiving meal in some ways, they pause in the middle of that meal to pour out some of the wine onto a plate to literally lessen their joy because of the Egyptians who perished that the Israelites might live. I'm wondering how many of us will go home to our meals this Thursday and do something that will recognize that not all of us are going to be as fortunate as each of us here, perhaps, to diminish our joy in the same ritual way we celebrate it. It's a good custom. I urge it upon you, but I urge you to find it in your own unique way. What I want to talk about is this irony that Thanksgiving became a custom during our time of difficulty. A colleague named Dan Schatz, a clergyman in Bucksmont, Pennsylvania, whom I remember because he was a young adult in a church I served in Austin, Texas, so I get some parental glow here of having lifted him up. He writes saying that Thanksgiving has its origins not in plenty, but in deprivation, not in peace, but in war. And that leads him to wonder if the real spiritual discipline of Thanksgiving is to see blessings where we thought none could exist. It's easy to be grateful when the plate is full, when our health is reliable, when our family is around us. But we should be asking ourselves, is it possible to be grateful for things we do not believe exist or we do not acknowledge as gifts? I can give you some help if you want to try this exercise. I want to introduce you to a woman named Somali Mam. She is a former, forgive me, sex slave of Cambodia. And Nicholas Kristof, in writing about her last week, and you may have read it in our own Grand Rapids Press, talks about how she managed to escape from virtual servitude, slavery in Cambodia, and to use her freedom once she obtained it to go back and rescue other girls and women. I've been telling you a lot of these stories this fall because the stories of women in slavery are going unnoticed, and we're talking about millions of women. I know I don't want to put a cloud over your Thanksgiving because this is a story of hope. That's the reason I'm reading it. Nicholas Kristof writes that he was riding in a car with her as they went to raid another brothel to rescue women. He writes, bristling with AK-47s, it didn't help my nerves that Somali, whom I've known for years, is fearless. Brothel owners have fought back ferociously against her. They've sent death threats, held a gun to her head, and shot up her car. She says, we all know that our lives are in danger. I've never been so happy in my life. Happy. Is that what you expected to hear? Not what I expected to hear. If she had escaped and stayed away and maybe gone back to her family and found a nice home so that she could have enough to eat. But no, she is happier running into brothels and pulling girls out. She's not just doing her duty, she is literally happy. This is puzzling to me. I think it would be puzzling to all of us. But she is demonstrating that sometimes our blessings are not where we expect them. Somali mom needs more than food and raiment, more than safety. She needs a purpose in life. She needs to know that her life is having a power that makes a difference, a reason to be alive that is larger than filling one's belly or being in the company of those she loves. We need to make our lives of value. Even though it deprives her of things that we think we absolutely need, she is happy because she is serving a cause that makes her life meaningful. Another example is a Native American woman named Mourning Dove, a Salish Indian from the Northwest, who in the early 20th century writes, there are two things I am most grateful for in life. The first is that I was born a descendant of the genuine Americans, the Indians. Those are the same people who helped the settlers survive the first Thanksgiving. I think if they could look back, they might have questioned that bit of advice. Then the second, she says, that my birth happened in the year 1888 because I was born long enough to go to have known people who lived the ancient way. She is grateful for the memory of a lost way of life. Can you imagine being grateful for remembering something that no one wants, and yet that's part of her gratitude? Like the Pilgrim's Feast, we find our most precious gifts not where we plan them or put them, but in the luck of the draw, in the potluck feast of life. It comes to us unbidden, unplanned. We cannot find it on our own. It simply arrives. In the Hebrew scriptures that would be read in the synagogue this week, there's the story of Abraham's servant. Abraham has sent a servant to find a wife for Isaac. Isaac is not a very good fellow. He's already cheated his brother Esau. Isaac is not a very nice fellow because he is not very good at what he does in life. And so Abraham says, I better send someone to find a wife because he can't do it on his own. And he sends a man out, and the servant says to God, help me find the right person. Make it be the woman who, when I stop for a drink, gives me a drink and also my camels. And sure enough, on the next page, that's exactly what happens. Bible's an amazing book. Everything happens one thing after another. No wasted stuff. But the point is, whether God sent it or not, a woman comes and meets him, gives him water and feeds the camels, and he says, that's the girl for Isaac. It happened. Well, whether or not it actually happened, what we're getting here is someone going with dumb luck, trusting the randomness of life. Gratitude is most important for what we get without asking or even looking for it. Anyone here ever made bread from scratch? I bet you most of you have. It's kind of fun, right? Yeah, you got the dough, you make the flour and the water, a little salt, and you knead it, and you do this kind of stuff, and then is something missing? Aha! What did they do before Fleischmann's existed? I'll tell you what they did. You mixed up the dough, you put it up a little high, and the yeast found the dough. Because like it or not, yeast is in the air all the time. You're breathing it in right now. You're breathing it out. It's all over things. It's on surfaces. It's on your hands. It floats around in the air, and some of it lands on the dough, and then the yeast goes, yum, starts eating the gluten, or shall we say the carbohydrates in it, and that's what blows it up. Then you punch it down and more yeast comes along. In other words, bread happens not because you make it happen, but because it happens. I want to talk to you about this as being a model for gratitude.